ignoring the brand and the history the brand has. That's a mistake I see a lot of people make. I find that those items sit inside my store forever and I never sell them. You can't simply purchase items because you think they're cool and hope that other people will buy them. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ken Para. I'm one half a Dimension the Dot. And today we are going to talk about the top 5 mistakes I see resellers making all the time. And this is going to be a fun video. I'd love for you guys to go ahead and share inside the comments some other mistakes you see resellers making all the time. And I should let you know, I've made all these mistakes myself. So these are kind of like the top 5 mistakes I personally have made in my own reselling business. But I still see people making them all the time, and I cringe every time I see people make these mistakes because it's really hurting their business. So let's just jump right into it. Number 1, using Google Lens to look up an item. Now, Google Lens is helpful, and I still use Google Lens if there's like a toy inside a bin and I want to know, like, oh, what toy is this? I'll use Google Lens to identify an item, and that's how Google Lens should be used. It should be used to identify items. But when I see the price of what this item is listed for, I do not say, oh, this is going to sell for $24.99, especially without checking out the sell-through rate on the item. So what I do is I'll copy the description of the item, I'll paste it into eBay, I'll see how many items are listed, and then I'll check the sold comps and I'll see how many sold. And then I'll find the average sale price for the item in the condition that I have. And that's how I would determine if I want to purchase this item, and if I do purchase this item, how much money I might be able to sell the item for. And I see a lot of people skipping those steps, and they'll say, hey, look, I found this shirt on Google Lens. It sells for $300. Well, just because someone's trying to sell it on Mercari for $300 does not mean it sells for $300. In fact, if we look at the sold comps on that shirt, maybe it only sells for $40 on eBay. And maybe there's 10 listed and there's only 1 sold. So I wouldn't even want to buy that item to begin with. So that's a mistake I see a lot of people make. And I would, I'd recommend you really start looking at the sell-through rate and not use Google Lens to price your items. Number 2, and this is, we do primarily clothing in our store, probably 70% clothes. And this is a mistake I see a lot of resellers making at the bins. They're shopping by style. They're like, wow, look at this granny core sweater. Or take a look at these linen pants. But they're ignoring the brand and the history the brand has on eBay or Posh with supply and demand. You know, just because the pants are linen doesn't mean that they're going to sell. Just because it's a silk blouse doesn't mean that there's interest. Silk is, you know, generally a higher end material, and you could usually get more money for, like, say, a silk Tommy Bahama shirt than you would for a cotton one. But if the brand that you're looking up there's no interest, nobody wants to buy the brand, you probably shouldn't buy it just because it's linen, just because it's silk, just because it's granny core. And I made that mistake early on as a reseller. I was like, sweet, these linen pants, they'll sell with the keywords linen. You know, oh, seersucker, this is going to sell. Seersucker's hot right now. I'm going to pick them up just because they're seersucker. I find that those items sit inside my store forever and I never sell them. So I think shopping by style is a mistake, especially if you're trying to sell your items within 90 days, which is my goal. So I know that some people still might argue the point that, hey, I sell by style all the time. But I'd love to see how quick the items sell inside your store if you're doing that. Because frankly, I've tried it myself and it doesn't work. And this number 3 is very similar to number 2. It's shopping by personal taste. A lot of people think that they're taste masters, but they don't have their own website. They don't have their own clothing store. And if you have your own website, you have your own blog, you have your own clothing store, then people may buy items based on your personal taste. For example, there's a YouTuber, Paul Cantu. He has a website, his own store, and he sells a lot of items on his store that have a bad sell-through rate on eBay. But he sells out on these items because he's a tastemaker. He can sell Tommy Hilfiger and, you know, consistently sell some vintage Tommy Hilfiger shirts. And people buy them because they like his style, they like him, and he's become a tastemaker. But you can't do that on eBay. You can't do that on Posh. You can't simply purchase items because you think they're cool and hope that other people will buy them. Because frankly, you haven't created your own brand yet. You're kind of really relying on the traffic of eBay. You're relying on the traffic of Posh. So unless you're an influencer, you shouldn't be selling based on style. Number 4, this is a mistake I still make. Not looking for flaws when you purchase items. Whether we're talking about electronics and skipping to check to see if there's corrosion in the battery department, or we're talking about a wool sweater and not noticing that the moths have come and created a bunch of little holes at the bottom or near the pits of the sweater. These are common mistakes I make all the time. Stains. I almost never pick up white shirts or pants anymore because I've been fooled so many times, unless I'm going to make a whole lot of money from these items. And then I look them over back and forth, but sometimes under the lighting at your thrift stores or the Goodwill bins or at a garage sale, you might miss the flaws. And I think as resellers, we should always proceed with caution when purchasing used items. A lot of times I'll find something that's new with tags, and then because it's new with tags, I'll assume there's no flaws. But there's a big bleach stain on it somehow. There's a big hole in it somehow. That's happened to me half a dozen times because it's new with tags. I think, wow, you know, it's flawless, it's brand new. Not always the case. Not always the case. Items get ruined inside stores. People spill juice and get their sticky fingers on items that are on the racks, and maybe a whole. I used to work inside retail at a clothing store, and sometimes items would come flawed directly right onto the floor. The merchandise was just cheaply made. There'd be holes, not very often, but those items would end up on the clearance rack. So just because something's new doesn't mean that it's flawless, and also doesn't mean you should buy it. Now, we give items about 4 months inside our store, and after that we unlist them, and we either try to sell them on like Whatnot or a Posh Live quickly, or we redonate them because we simply don't have the space for them anymore. And what I found is a good percentage of those items are new with tag items from crappy brands. So normally we don't buy Old Navy or we don't buy Calvin Klein because they're oversaturated and they're hard to sell, but because they're new, we'll give it a chance. We're no longer doing that because a lot of these items that are brand new are not selling. The sell-through rate just isn't there. What you could do is you could check and filter the sell-through rate for only new items. And sometimes you'll find that they're worth picking up. If you filter out all the used items and you just check the sell-through rate on the condition of new, then you'll realize, hey, well, new, these kind of sell okay. But very often, even new, they're not going to sell. So that's another point, and a mistake that I've made a lot, is buying things just because they're new. Whether it's a new unbox, or if it's new with tags, you still should check the sell-through rate, because new doesn't mean it's going to sell. Lastly is a mistake, probably one of the worst mistakes I've made as a reseller, is not having a good inventory storing system. When we first started, we probably went all the way up to past 300 items without having SKUs, custom SKUs, where we could locate the items if they sold. And to this day, until very recently, where I went back and unlisted any item that didn't have a custom SKU. We were selling items that I had a hard time finding. And I know I'm not the only one, because I got friends that tell me horror stories of looking 3 hours for an item. Now when you sell an item for 15 bucks, 20 bucks, and it takes you 3 hours to find it, wow, you're really not paying yourself very well. So I would tell people at any stage of the game to start a custom SKU system right away. Even if you're only going to have 3 or 4 boxes of inventory total, it's much easier to know what box to look into. And you can get detailed, like daily refinement, and have each item pretty much alphabetized so you know exactly where it's going to be. Or you can do it like most of us do, where you just have, hey, inside the box SE, I got 15 items located inside there, and when something sells, I got to sort through those 15 items to find it. But have something. Have something. I do see the benefits of getting more detailed. Of course, you save more time. But maybe that is something we'll try out inside the future. But at the very least, it's good to know the general idea, the general location of where your item might be, so you don't waste time, precious time that you could be used sourcing and listing and creating promotions so you make more sales. So those are the top 5 mistakes I see resellers making that make me cringe, and I'd love for you to share with me some other things that bother you, and not bother in a way like, oh, it bothers me, but you realize, wow, this person could be doing much better if they just didn't do that, or I could be doing much better if I made this adjustment inside my game. So yeah, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Please like this video if you found it informative, and subscribe to our channel for more reselling content. Again, my name's Ken, my wife's name is Erica. Together we are Dimension the Dot, and we'll see you next time.